In this lesson, we'll learn how to create and modify type on a path. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we learned how to select and format our text. Now, we skipped over one tool here underneath our type tool, and it's the type on a path tools. So I tell you what, I've got here a path, and we're going to be using that for this lesson. So let me just come down here and take a look. We've got just a normal path. We've got a 1-point black stroke on this path, and I've got some type here. So let me just come in here and just double click in this area type window, and I want to copy this lorem ipsum text here. So let me just hit a Control-C and copy that, and let's go ahead and select our path, and I'm going to come over here and select my type on a path tool. And with this tool, you can see we have a little bit of a cursor change. It looks like there's a little bitty path running through the text insertion. Let's go ahead and just click on the path here. Now I'm going to line that up with my smart guides until I see that word path, and let's just go ahead and click. You can see now that there is a black flashing text insertion cursor there. So I can go ahead and hit Control-V to paste that type. And let's just go ahead and grab our selection tool. Alright, now let me just go ahead and modify this type just a little bit. Now in the last lesson we learned how to access the character panel and the paragraph panel, and to be honest, I usually don't have those panels open as I'm working. I actually usually access them through the control panel up here. We can have these little blue hyperlinks. We can get to both panels really quickly just by clicking on those hyperlinks here. So I want to go ahead and center my text up, and let's go ahead and come over to our character panel. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's say about 36. And let's go ahead and adjust the tracking some. Let's go ahead and actually change it all to caps right here. Let's bump that tracking in just a little bit further. Alright, that looks good. Let's go ahead and change it over to bold as well. Alright, now we've made some modifications to our type here. It's on the path. Now notice there's some controls on this path for dealing with the type. We've got here a control on the left, we've got a control on the right, and we've got a center control. Now this might actually be a little easier for you to see if we change the alignment back to left align. So let me go ahead and do that here, and notice that when I do that, our text aligns here to the control on the left. So this left control sets the boundary for our type on this path. We could actually click that and drag it over to the right some. If we wanted it to be further to the left, we can click it. Be careful not to add a text insertion cursor. We could click it and drag it further to the left. Now the right control is actually going to do exactly the opposite. It's going to select the right boundary for our text and modify that as well. So you can see here how we just selected that. Now the center control does something a little bit different. Now let me see if I can grab that. It seems to be hiding there. You can see I'm grabbing it by the cursor change. We can grab that, and we can actually move both the left boundary and the right boundary at the same time. So that's what the center control is going to allow you to do. Now let me go ahead and just click this left boundary, drag it all the way to the end of our path. I'm going to click the right boundary, drag it all the way to the end of the path, and then I'm going to go ahead and center this text, and that'll put it right in the center of our path. Alright, now there's one other thing that this center control is actually going to do. It's actually going to allow us to flip the type along the path. We could flip it down to the bottom of our path. Let me just go ahead and grab this center control and drag it across the path. And you can see here now we have our type is upside down, and it's wrapping on this opposite side of our path. You know, I don't like that. I want it the way we originally had it. Let me go ahead and just undo that. And I want to show you some different options that we have for type on a path. Now we can come up to our type drop-down menu and choose type on a path, and you can see there's several different options here. Now the first one is checked. It says rainbow. I want to go ahead and go to this type on a path options right here, because we're going to see all of these again inside this dialog. Alright. Now in this dialog we have a number of different effects that we can actually apply to the type we have on our path. And like I said before, we have the rainbow effect selected by default here. We also have the ability to flip the type along the path, just like I showed you using that center control. Let me go ahead and show you that with the preview on here. We'll go ahead and flip that. Does exactly the same thing. Now let's go ahead and change the effect and look at a couple of these different effects here. I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to skew. You can see here that it's actually skewing our type. This is actually a pretty popular effect when dealing with type on a path. Now these other options, depending on the look you're going for, you may not actually use these as much, but there's a 3D ribbon effect, there is a stair step effect, and there's also a gravity effect. So each of these looks a little different, and to be honest, I haven't used many of these myself except for the skew effect. So, but there are a number of different effects we can actually apply to our type. Now let's look at this second option here, to align to path. Right now it's set to baseline. It's aligning the path to the baseline of our type, meaning the bottom edge of our type. We can actually drop this down and choose to align it to the center of our type. We can choose to align it to the ascender, which is the top of our type, or we could choose the descender. But with this type, we actually don't have any descenders. The descenders are what extend below the baseline. So let's go ahead and leave this up here on baseline for right now. Now, this last option for spacing is a little different, and I'm not sure we'll be able to demonstrate that with our current path. I may have to come in and adjust that path, but this spacing option actually has to do with how our type is handled around sharper turns. Let me go ahead and just hit OK on this dialog, and let's see if we can modify this path. I tell you what, actually, it may just be easier to come in and draw a new path. So I tell you what, let's just go ahead and make some room here. We'll pull in a new path. Let's grab our ellipse tool and just draw in an ellipse. Just like so. And let's go ahead and switch that to a stroke and delete one of these anchor points here. Alright, so let me just go ahead and click in here, copy our type. And let's go ahead and grab our Type on a Path tool again. We'll go ahead and click on this path here. And I'm just going to paste my type in. Alright, now you can see here around this sharper turn, we've got sort of some distortion here with the type on our path. It doesn't look very good. So let me come in here now and access our Type on a Path options again. But instead of coming to the Type drop-down menu, I'm actually going to come over and just double-click on the Type on a Path tool. And we can get to that Type on a Path options from there as well. Now let me come in and preview this, and let's come in and adjust the spacing here. We'll see if we can't get that spacing to look a little bit better. Let's see what a negative value does here. We'll set it to about -12, and that's going to actually be way too much spacing. So let's go ahead and increase the spacing there, see if we can't increase that to where that looks a little bit better around that turn. Just going to continue to increase the spacing there, and we can get that however close we want to so that it actually looks a little more natural around that sharp turn. But you can see here what the spacing does in the Type on a Path options. So let me go ahead and hit OK on that. Alright, so in this lesson we've learned how to create and modify Type on a Path, applying a number of different effects. In the next lesson we're going to continue learning about type and talk about how we can wrap type around another object.